Hello, I'm Andrew from Literary Gladiators, and I have a book haul from one of my most favorite bookstores, Labyrinth Books in Princeton. I've been going there for some time, going back to, I would go to the Princeton Record Exchange and then hit Pizza Colore and then Labyrinth Books, and I don't know how long Pizza Colore has been closed, but could find out later, and it's about how long I've been going. Never been disappointed. Every experience has been excellent. The people who work there for a reason. They love what they do, and I've learned a lot according to my interests. And I'll start off with a book that best exemplifies what I'm trying to get towards. The first book I picked up, Arthur Machen's The White People and Other Weird Stories. I wanted this book the day it was released, and I excitedly went to Barnes & Noble to pick it up, and I received what I always get from Barnes & Noble, is that in a warehouse, or they could order it for me. So I mean, I can order it, and by the time I order books, I'm ordering a lot. So I never picked it up. I kept it in the back of my brain. I knew I was going to pick it up. Eventually, a few months later, I went to the Strand in New York City. They didn't have it either. But what they did have was a fantastic conversation, which led me to discover a really early edition of Algernon Blackwood's Ancient Sorceries. So in that respect, it's the connection with the books and the people who love and appreciate them is what make independent bookstores so valuable. So to go ahead 5 years later, I walk into Labyrinth Books, and they didn't have only one but two copies of this, and I had all of these stories in some fashion before, but this collection is excellent. It has a foreword by Guillermo del Toro and an intro by S.T. Joshi, and really sets the stage. It has the absolute top of his work. If you want to feel out how his weird literature horror plays out, you should check out his exceptional, magnificent The White People. I think you can find it on Project Gutenberg, and if that's of your liking, I highly recommend the Penguin Classics. It's fully annotated. It gave me great insight on places, pubs, ancient religions. You know, I had thought I had known these stories, and a lot of these books around the turn of the century that have a lot of recondite information and you know, arcane words and terms. You can't really like read it in rhythm. You're always constantly like going googling up and searching back what they might be talking. And this plays well. So it's Arthur Machen, The White People and Other Weird Stories. The first book of my haul that I just opened up and tore up and just couldn't let down until it was done was Ray Bradbury's The Martian Chronicles. Excellent. Make no mistake, he's a poet and a prophet. This was published in 1950, essentially 2 decades before Apollo 11. Has to do with the exploration, habitation, and colonization of Americans shipping it off to Mars, and the speculation of what was in store for them. The first arrival didn't happen exactly as planned, and I'm trying not to spoil it for you. It was a very creative explanation. It was very tragic and hilarious. It's hard to explain. This is essentially a collection of short stories, but perhaps half existed in disparate standalone stories. But I found that this was synced up well with no extra literary devices like some external narrator tying it together. It seamlessly worked sequentially from beginning to end. It worked perfectly. I highly recommend it. This personally took me 4 hours to read, but I was really enthused, and I just went for it. But $15, yeah, it'll be true 1,000 years from now. It'll still be exceptional. So read Bradbury, The Martian Chronicles. And while I was in Princeton, I knew I would eventually buy this book. I first read it the day my library stocked it on the shelf, and I read it from cover to cover. I don't remember how long it took me, because it's a long book, and it's just packed with so much detail. It's The Accursed by Joyce Carol Oates. It doesn't get more Princeton than this. It takes place in the year between 1905 and 1906. It heavily into the politics of the time, the President Woodrow Wilson and Dean West. The one criticism this receives, it is long, and it definitely sprawls. There is no clear protagonist, and somebody who's not kind of in the want to read this will probably get fed up. It is. I thought this was cute. It ends at page 667, which was really cute, and but this had every single item of my interest in it. It is Princeton. It had so many cast of characters: Woodrow Wilson, Grover Cleveland, Mark Twain, Upton Sinclair, John Updike. There is a very plausible explanation of the existence of the Jersey Devil. I won't read this in full again, but there are stories that were excellent, and I will read The Bog Kingdom a few more times. It was really dark, and as Stephen King called this, postmodern Gothic novel, which I'll have to entirely agree with. Just I know that this was so vast. There is so much concerning the day with the West End upper crust of Princeton. A lot of popular things, such as the South Pole exploration and newfangled gizmos like the fan. If you do read this, brace yourself. There's a great scene with an electric fan. Can be humorous. I love Joyce Carol Oates. She had race, class, and gender is a JCO motif, and this clearly is an example of that. Like I said, there's no protagonist, but there is a center of action. One Presbyterian pastor, Winslow Slade, and his 4 grandchildren, who, at a point and under different circumstances, ostensibly figured dead at some point in here, and they all belonged to some curse, and all these events are stitched together from a very I wouldn't call him, well, he's an amateur historian, and he clearly has a bias, and he's prejudiced, and it's evident he has an axe to grind. He's not, in the conventional sense, an unreliable narrator, but you are continuously reminded that he's not giving you the facts as they should, and that's the glue that's kept this book together. And unless this is like of your interest, I wouldn't recommend it. Although personally, I give this a really high mark. I'd give it a personal A+. But if you were to read it, brace yourself. And not a religious person, but the last 20 pages, supremely blasphemous. You might want to get yourself in check before you read this. So yeah, I loved it, and yeah, I will definitely be rereading certain stories from this. Another book. I love films, but I can't hang with the grown-ups in particulars to, you know, technical aspects of film. You know, I know what I like, and it's my own experience, and I put into it. So what I'm trying to say is, this book, Louis Buñuel's, it's his complete films. I love every single one of them, and I also was late to this man's work and art, but it was after reading the novel Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. I was really interested in the obscure object, and then from there I worked backwards towards like 1930. If you're not familiar with Louis Buñuel, I mean, if you're not familiar with this scene, it may have been his first film. It's definitely very early. It was 1930 with Salvador Dali. That's the guy I'm speaking about. Every single one of his movies to me is just inspiring. It gives me goosebumps. And with this book, a lot of fantastic stills, still photography. I mean, I would buy this a million times over just for the cover alone. And bonus is, as far as I know, this book is out of print. So this haul is an exceptional score on this alone. So you know, if movies are your thing, they have done this for other directors. Taschen, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I've seen it for other directors. This is I don't know. It's a great package. It's printed well. A great matte. It's a great finish to the cover, and I don't know what this texture is called, but it's like if like, I don't know, stationery could be like corduroy. So yeah, that's another reason I would buy the book, because man, this feels awesome. Really good texture. So that's Louis Buñuel. Probably not pronouncing his name as correctly as I should either, but love this book. It's excellent. And last but not least, a very personal book. I haven't even all right, this is the most I've opened it so far, but I'm incredibly excited to read this. Because The Idea Factory, Bell Labs and the Great Age of American Innovation by John Gertner came out a few years ago. The reason I'm interested in this, my father worked at Bell Labs for over 40 years. It is amazing how far we've come from the transistor, the integrated circuit, from early 30s till now. Bell Labs is no longer in operation. The building still stands. There's always a piece in local papers of what might happen to it, but I grew up in this building. I took visits there, had lunches with my dad, amazing Christmas parties. I remember when I was younger, the entirety of my Atari was bootlegged from sources there. It was such a stark and inspiring building. The lobby, and it had hanging gardens. It was really total fantasy. And of course, when I was younger, I thought that was the norm. Everyone's dad had these magical worlds that they lived in. And growing up, I rediscovered how important this company was. So it's something that constantly surprises me. And my father told me, just from some of the pictures, of course he's got bosses and higher ups in here, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to checking out the guts that made The Idea Factory. Speaking of Homedale and Princeton, it's really you can really sit back and reflect how much technology owes itself to central New Jersey. Einstein and Bell Labs and Edison, and it's in the right light. It's a terrific place to be and live. I will be going back to Labyrinth as I always do. I highly recommend visiting it. Tell them the Literary Gladiators sent you. You won't be disappointed. But yeah, literature is definitely still alive, and yeah, it'd be fantastic if you check the place out. Thanks for listening to me, and I will see you all later. Bye.